From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Let's get to the magic, right? So we've got the background. All the stuff we talked about did really happen. But what kind of magic were these members practicing? Magic can mean a million different things. If you read up on the history of the group, it's easy to get deterred because it falls into a lot of talk about structure, organization. There are a lot of foreign phrases, a lot of jargon, terminology, things like that. So it's easy to get turned off by that. But it's crucial to note, again, like Matt said earlier, the Golden Dawn did borrow heavily from earlier spiritual belief systems, but it was not in itself a religion. When we define magic, we're inherently, our definition is inherently relying upon a specific cultural lens. Like there's practical magic, right? Can I make this thing float? Can I have precognitive dreams or send my consciousness away from my body? And then there's the more metaphorical stuff, like who are we in the universe and what is this whole reality thing? So maybe we start with the metaphysical stuff. They had a number of metaphysical pursuits at play.
Yeah, that's right. So the idea is that through ceremony and ritual, like we were talking about, an individual might be able to achieve kind of that esoteric knowledge, that knowledge of the gods, perhaps, or like of the spheres, that otherwise would be completely out of reach for mere mortals, right? The kind of stuff that would like blow your mind up if someone that was not prepared to receive it did. So that includes things like being able to leave your body or leave your body spiritually and project your consciousness into other places, a process known as astral projection. Clairvoyance, psychic powers, being able to read people's minds or see the future. Or very specific to this belief system, communicating specifically with those secret chiefs who you would reach on another plane of existence entirely. Then you get into more abstract kind of philosophical ideas that are wrapped up in it. Things like hidden truths, that there's unity within all the things, as well as interconnectedness, and things that might at first appear to be a little contradictory, right?
Yeah, just a bit. Yeats talks about it when he says, he describes it as tapping into the single energetic mind or the single memory of nature. You know what I mean? We see this reflected in later ideas about Earth as a superorganism, right? The Gaia hypothesis and so on. It's similar to that. But really then, from the abstract lens, what they are saying is that magic can be defined as the process of removing limitations and preconceptions, right? So the alchemy that takes place is an alchemy of cognition, more so than an alchemy of metals, right? Of base metals to gold.
But it really makes me wonder if they had a specialist mage that could, let's say, remove all the water from your body, or another one that could infect your brain with all of the known and unknown things that could possibly happen to your brain. If you ever come across, I don't know, some kind of ancient octopus entity, like you could get it removed from your body and you'd need a specialist like that. I've been watching too much Sabrina. Sorry, I didn't mean to watch it. It just happened.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
Sorry. Jeez.
Wait, no, I heard it was really good.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, let's move on.
What, freaked you out?
Yeah. You okay?
Just having flashbacks. The production value this season is really good.
All right. I'll check it out, man. Yeah. So if we take these claims of extrasensory perception and maybe even supernatural powers aside, if we just bracket that for a second, then some of the descriptions of what people are doing here or practicing sounds kind of like therapy, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
like a self-inventory. Or what's that great quote describing magic? Weaponized psychology. So it's maybe not so much changing your external reality as it is enhancing your ability to perceive reality as it always was. It's allowing you to experience things in a new, more conscious way. And I was thinking about this, like as far as an analogy, remember back when we were doing an episode on Ireland's Vanishing Triangle, and Matt, you did something really interesting, which is you went through Google Earth, I believe, and you started constructing an overlay, a skin to put on the area such that we could see different events and see when they occurred. That has a lot of similarities with the idea of philosophical magic here, right?
Oh yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. It's also very reminiscent of modern insular groups that we've discussed on this show recently. I'm thinking about Nexium, thinking about our discussions with Mike Rinder, thinking about it just has very, very, very similar things where on the surface there appears to be exactly what you're saying here, Ben, a self-help kind of thing, a self-improvement map that you get to follow. But at the end of that map, there's something that is really hidden or there's something, just very different, or a different a route to get there, I guess.
Yeah. The Google Earth example, right? Maybe you apply an overlay or a skin on an area of Google Earth that you're looking at, and maybe you have one map that shows future planned constructions. So you go down the street view, you walk around, you've got this cool map that says this is coming in 2023 or this is coming in 2054. Or alternatively, you could have a map that shows how a place looked 1,000 years ago. This is what London looked like back in, 1021 or something like that. You haven't then necessarily changed anything about the outer world, but you have changed your perception of it. And therefore, your actions will reflect and potentially benefit from this new perspective. From a secular viewpoint, if we want to look just at the group dynamics of this, there could be another kind of magic at play, and some people might not want us to call it magic, but I think it's not too different. Social engineering, right? It's a club.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the society itself would let the members of the different classes and background that existed in society, people who would be considered by others to be lowly, others to be notable and in power, essentially, allowed them to interact and encounter each other in ways that they just wouldn't have that opportunity outside of being in this group.
So it was merit based in some way. It wasn't just cutting off certain parts of the social ladder, like it wasn't closed off to the lower classes.
Yeah, apparently it was unusually progressive.
That's
in that way.
fascinating.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and it's not necessarily sinister. So I don't want to poison the well, but for anybody who's read the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson, there is an organization of bad guys in the story. They're called Dark Friends, and they function kind of the same way. They have this hidden knowledge. They have signals they use to indicate their presence to one another. Also similar, Matt, to the Latitude Society, right? Dark Friends are fictional, and Dark Friends are definitely antagonists, but this organization itself is not necessarily antagonistic, nor is it necessarily sinister, but it definitely feels cool to be included, right? You're like, oh, hey, what did you do today? I went to the pub, and then I talked with a fellow member of my order who happens to be, the Duke of Middlebury on Sandwich or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of some of these country clubs that exist, or these private health clubs or something but in this case, that the entry fee, the bar to entry is different. It's very different. It's more about, are you interested in this more esoteric version of the world or of reality? And that's really all you need. You're still going to have to pay something to get in, but you don't have to spend several $1,000s.
And of course, there were cases of con artists being involved in impersonating members of the order or claiming to be a temple when they were, just doing a money grab. But this kind of street, this kind of social circuit moves both ways. So not only did it allow people to have access to maybe influential individuals they might not have otherwise interacted with, it is also possible that these influential individuals themselves could have used their presence in the organization to advance their own worldly goals. Hey, great meeting today. Before we leave, I need you to help me with this import deal I'm working on. Things like that, it's quite possible. And it's also quite possible that all of this was occurring at the same time and that different people were prioritizing different things in their relationship to the organization.
Aleister Crowley.
Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Aleister Crowley.
He was around in the late 1800s and joined the order in 1898.
Yep. And he is an episode all his own. He's one of those kind of phantom topics we mentioned earlier because it comes up in various related topics. The Golden Dawn heavily influenced a lot of what he would go on to write and a lot of what he would go on to claim to believe. He did not really care for a lot of the members that were already in the organization when he joined up because he thought they were like Holden Caulfield style phonies. He said, look, you're not in this for the real reasons. You're in it because it works out for you socially or it gives you material rewards.
You're in the country club.
You're in the country club. Yeah, exactly. He was saying this should not be a country club. It's kind of like the way someone might take up golf, not because they care about golf, but because it gives them access to money, advancement, and power. So that's his issue that he had with a lot of those members, but they also had some issues with him.
That's right. He was a bit of a libertine, a bit of a hedonist.
A little bit.
Yeah, and wasn't ashamed of his sexual proclivities, and was very gregarious and just really kind of brought a whole nother BD energy kind of to the group,
bellicose and derogatory,
didactic, correct?
Yeah, and he progressed through that first order where you're learning most of these spiritual metaphysical concepts, and he wanted to be in the second order, but a lot of people were against it. They were like, this guy, no way. Do you know what he gets up to on the weekends?
He goes to pyramids with his wife, and you should see the incantations. That was later.
Yeah, they're like, how disgusting. Tell me more in detail. So there was controversy, right? But the guy that he was following, Mather, liked him. And so Mather unilaterally inducted him into this second order, which caused a great deal of problems. He became like Mather's sort of, he did things for Mather. And he also experimented heavily with the ritualistic use of drugs. Everything comes to a culmination when he and his mistress try to take over a space that was rented by the order in West Kensington. This goes to court, and when the case goes to court, he loses. And that's one of the final nails in the coffin of his official membership. But weirdly enough, and he went on to do all the other stuff that you know about, but weirdly enough, his interaction with this group is one of the few reasons mainstream society talks about the Golden Dawn today. Even if he didn't like them, he helped keep their legacy around.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that's what we talked about. I mean, that he is probably the search term that gets many people to a Hermetic Order site or to something written about Hermetic Order. It's because they went Aleister Crowley and then got there. But that there's something really interesting that we can talk about here, because as open as they were, as large of a membership as the Golden Dawn had, they were able to keep a lot of their stuff very, very quiet, at least the materials they used to learn rituals, to learn a lot of the, more secretive knowledge. They were able to keep that stuff hidden, at least pretty well.
And this occurs, of course, because they know everybody who would have access to that information. They all took a specific vow of silence, but that vow of silence didn't last. And that is why today you can see detailed descriptions of various specific rites on any number of websites. Like hermetic.com is a pretty great resource. And don't worry, folks, it's not a bunch of witches like cackling around a cauldron or practicing human sacrifice. What's interesting here is that the Golden Dawn itself, nothing ever happens in a vacuum, right? The Golden Dawn itself occurs in the same kind of cultural context of spiritualism rather, and science, of emerging psychology, like the Western fascination with what they called Eastern mysteries, like meditation or yoga. They definitely came bundled up with a lot of xenophobia, a lot of racist notions of the time, but there turns out to be genuine science to the benefits of things like mindfulness and exercise. You're practicing rhythmic breathing. You know what I mean? You're moving your body in a healthy way, and you're exploring your own mindset. So that's beneficial to people.
And, whether or not these practices will grant you, the ability to commune with the astral plane or across the astral plane, is it a thing you have to cross or a place that you occupy? I'm not quite sure. Or be able to speak with those machine elves. We talked about that in the Kesha episode. That you got to have DMT for that business. Here's a surprising thing. Maybe not to everybody, but this seems like pretty progressive, I would argue. Like even in the earliest forms where they're letting, regular old folks join in. And they thought Aleister Crowley was a creep. But there apparently is a far right version of this organization.
Yeah, unfortunately, they have a very similar name, but they are not. They're hopefully not related past the name. And of course, we have people who have read up on the Golden Dawn in the audience here. So we wanted to be clear, there's a different organization that has very little to do with magic. It is the Golden Dawn is a far-right political party in Greece. They've got a number of policy platforms. The main thing is they want to return Greece to a military dictatorship. And they say the benefits of this would be superior to the current Greek government. Here's the thing. They're often described by many people as neo-Nazis. Many members of the party disagree with that characterization. It's just important for us to say this because what it means is if you want to learn more about joining an organization affiliated with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, just make sure you're joining the right outfit. Double check the website. You know what I mean? Be careful.